The beach house my parents bought me was given by my wife to her assistant to live in. Ethan Hayes posted a 9-photo grid from a pool party on his social media feed, complete with location tag, "Thanks to the president for the luxurious villa." I'll definitely keep striving in the photos sent by the housekeeper. The courtyard sculpture was smashed, and the flowers I planted were all dug up. I immediately forwarded the photos to Victoria Bellwether. "What is the meaning of this, Miss Bellwether? Why is someone else in my villa?" Victoria instantly replied with a voice message, the sound of waves in the background. "Don't be so petty, Sincere. We have plenty of places to live. I want him out of there within 3 hours and the villa restored to its original state." Victoria read the message but didn't reply. 5 minutes later, I auctioned off the villa for $1. Her antique collection was smashed to smithereens by me. Since someone wouldn't listen, I didn't mind teaching her a lesson on how to behave. Chapter 1. Just as I put down my phone, it rang again. It was Victoria Bellwether, who had just left my message on read. "Sincere Clark, what on earth did you do? Why was Ethan Hayes thrown out by security?" Victoria's voice was laced with obvious anger. My tone was calm. "That villa was mine. I just sold it. The new owner's only condition was to clear out everyone and everything inside within the hour." There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. "Sincere, have you misunderstood something? There's nothing going on between Ethan Hayes and me. He's just my assistant." Victoria's tone softened. "Don't you think you're being a bit too aggressive and overly sensitive?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Victoria Bellwether, it's clearly you who doesn't know how to maintain boundaries, how to conduct yourself properly. How can you turn around and accuse me?" Victoria didn't respond to the question, skillfully changing the subject. "Sincere, you own so many other villas. Leaving them empty is a waste. I was just making reasonable use of resources. Ethan Hayes and I really haven't done anything inappropriate." She paused, her voice becoming slightly impatient. "I never realized you were so petty." I curled my lip, but my eyes turned cold. "Since Ms. Bellwether is so generous, I assume you won't mind if those precious treasures of yours turn into a pile of junk?" With that, I opened my photo album, selected a few pictures, and sent them over. The photos showed Victoria's cherished antique collection, accumulated over many years, smashed into tiny pieces scattered across the floor. The line went quiet for several seconds. "Sincere Clark." She enunciated my full name syllable by syllable. I knew this was a sign of her extreme fury, but I didn't care. "Victoria Bellwether, you saw the photos, didn't you? This is the price for trying to test my limits. If you dare to cross the line like this again, you'll lose far more than just these worthless trinkets." I hung up immediately, giving her no chance to argue back. In the years since our wedding, we rarely had heated arguments. But that didn't mean I would back down out of fear of conflict. Once boundaries in a marriage start to recede, it only invites the other party to push further. Besides, this marriage didn't begin out of pure love in the first place. The Bellwether family was desperate to break into the elite circles of high society back then, and needed the Clark family's influence, which led to this business alliance. When we first met, Victoria Bellwether showed her meticulousness and gentleness. She was also beautiful and handled business matters thoughtfully and appropriately. At the time, I thought perhaps sharing a life with someone like her wouldn't be so bad, so I didn't object to the family arrangement. Fortunately, as we spent time together after marriage, feelings grew between us. She and I shared some truly sweet moments and were once seen by the outside world as a perfect match, a power couple. However, at every stage, I clearly understood that I always came first. Later, the passion faded, and life settled into a stable routine. I buried myself in work, and she focused on her career. I could understand and accept that all relationships eventually mellow, or even dissipate, but I would never allow the reason for that dissipation to be the intrusion of a third party. Ever since I was young, the thing I detested most was other people touching my things. If an object got dirty, I'd throw it away without hesitation. If a person became tainted, the method of disposal was the same. Chapter 2. Victoria Bellwether didn't contact me again. She was always like this. Once her mistakes were exposed, she'd retreat into silence, hiding in her shell. Until this afternoon, a message popped up from Julian Vance. Sincere, why are you ignoring me? I saw you at the venue just now, called your name several times, but you didn't react. I frowned slightly, quickly replying, I haven't left the house today. You must have seen someone else. Are you sure it wasn't you? I saw that custom navy blue suit you had made, and your wife was with him. Sincere. Wait. I got a picture of his face. A photo quickly appeared on my phone. Victoria Bellwether was wearing an elegant, appropriate white gown, her hair pinned up, and beside her stood Ethan Hayes, wearing my custom-tailored suit, smiling as he chatted with someone. I stared at the photo for a good 10 seconds. Before I could react, another message popped up. This time it was from Victoria's executive assistant, accompanied by a screenshot. It was Ethan Hayes' social media feed. First time attending the summit auction thanks to Ms. Bellwether for showing me the ropes. Finally know what real high society is like, excited emoji. The accompanying picture showed him sitting in the front row of the auction, with Victoria Bellwether beside him, a slight smile on her lips, clearly condoning his selfie and caption. I suddenly remembered something. Victoria hated having her picture taken. Even during the sweetest period of our relationship, if I wanted to take a couple's photo, she would shy away, saying she wasn't photogenic. It seemed my punishment this morning was too light. Not only did she dare bring another man to the most exclusive auction in high society circles, but she even let him wear my suit and allowed him to post a picture together on social media to show off. I forwarded the photo directly to Victoria Bellwether. Explain this. Why is he wearing my suit? The message showed as read, but there was no reply. A few minutes later, I took a photo and sent it to her. Julian's message popped up immediately after. Sincere, what did you send Ms. Bellwether? She just suddenly stood up and rushed out. Ethan Hayes couldn't even hold her back. I didn't reply to him because Victoria's call was already coming through. In the photo I sent, I was sitting by the fireplace, holding a small, exquisitely crafted wooden box. The surface of the box was spotless, clearly wiped and maintained often. Sincere. Put that down. Victoria's voice trembled slightly, tinged with obvious panic and anger. What do you think you're doing? Inside the wooden box were some carefully preserved items, a few yellowed photographs, a bracelet, and a delicate brooch. The boy in the photos had a bright, radiant smile. This was Victoria Bellwether's white moonlight, her first love who had supposedly died from illness. The Bellwether family had mentioned it unintentionally once. I suddenly understood the reason for all of Victoria's recent abnormal behavior. Ethan Hayes bore a 7 or 8/10 resemblance to her white moonlight. Sincere, don't touch those things. Victoria's voice was almost pleading, laced with tears. Victoria Bellwether, you know I've always hated people touching my things. Just like how you feel right now. Now immediately have Ethan Hayes take off that suit. There are lounges at the auction house, make him change. Silence hung on the line for a few seconds. Sincere, don't you only wear those suits once anyway? Victoria softened her tone. What's the big deal if he wears clothes you're discarding? I chuckled softly, but my voice grew colder. Victoria Bellwether, my things, even if I discard them, are not for others to touch. You have two choices now. Either make Ethan Hayes take off that suit before the auction starts, or... I shook the box in my hand, the items inside rattling faintly. Face the consequences. With that, I hung up. Chapter 3. Over the next while, messages from Julian kept popping up. Sincere, what did you say to her just now? Your Ms. Bellwether rushed back in, white as a sheet, didn't say a word, just dragged Ethan Hayes out. Wait, they're back, my God. What is going on? Is Ethan Hayes wearing a security guard's uniform? My lips curved upwards. This outcome was even better than I'd anticipated. Sincere, Ethan Hayes' expression, oh my God, it's priceless. Everyone's looking at them and whispering. I'm getting second-hand embarrassment just watching. Julian, take a few pictures for me. Julian quickly sent several photos. In them, Victoria Bellwether sat rigidly, expressionless. Ethan Hayes, however, was wearing an ill-fitting black uniform, his carefully styled hair completely messed up, eyes red and swollen. This auction has extremely high entry requirements. You can't leave midway. This kid has to sit through the entire event dressed as a security guard. Julian's tone dripped with schadenfreude. Your wife looks livid. Sincere, this move was brilliant. And Ethan Hayes, who did he think he was messing with? Daring to provoke you. He probably won't even know what hit him in the end. After the auction ended, Julian sent another message. When they left, your wife's face was practically purple with rage. Ethan Hayes kept his head down like a frightened quail, wishing the ground would swallow him whole. Julian sent a new photo. The navy blue suit was now discarded in a trash can. Sincere got the shot. I immediately posted the photo to my social media feed with a simple caption, "Trash belongs in the trash can." Within 5 minutes, the likes surpassed 100. Anyone astute could see that the suit in the trash can was the exact one Ethan Hayes had flaunted on his feed. My meaning was unmistakable. Sincere, Ms. Bellwether lost a lot of face today. Won't she blow up at you when she gets home? I replied casually, don't worry. Even if you gave her 10 times the nerve, she wouldn't dare. That evening, when Victoria Bellwether returned home, the atmosphere was thick with tension. She walked up to me. Sincere Clark, where are my things? She asked, her voice hoarse, eyes slightly red. I just stared at her silently, saying nothing. Victoria struggled to control her emotions. Sincere, I admit my actions today were inappropriate. I didn't consider your feelings. It was my mistake. But I did as you asked. I lost face in front of everyone. Can we please stop this fighting? Just give me back my things. She spoke softly, looking at me almost pleadingly. I raised an eyebrow. Victoria Bellwether, you lost face because of your own improper actions, not because of me. Aren't you going to explain what happened today? Victoria avoided my gaze. We have a purely professional relationship. I was just rewarding Ethan Hayes for doing a good job. I scoffed, pressing closer. Victoria Bellwether, there are so many ways to reward someone. Why did you choose the worst possible one? A luxury villa, a prestigious auction, a ridiculously expensive suit. To an ordinary person, you know exactly what these things symbolize. You wouldn't even take the couple's photo I asked for, yet you were willing to be pictured with him. Every time you indulge him, you're sending him a positive signal. That's why he's become increasingly brazen, even daring to provoke me. Besides, is his inadequate work performance truly deserving of your rewards? Victoria lowered her head, remaining silent. Your favoritism towards him is just because he strongly resembles your white moonlight, isn't it? I bluntly exposed her thoughts. A substitute is still just a substitute. He can never become the person in your heart. Victoria Bellwether, you need to distinguish between them. Her breathing grew heavier, still silent, tears streaming down her face. I took the small wooden box from behind my back and handed it to her, my tone softening slightly. Victoria, I understand your attachment to him, and I never intended to destroy the precious memory between you two. But I hope you won't destroy what's precious between us either. What happened today was the first time, and it must be the last. Victoria took the small wooden box, set it aside, then suddenly threw herself at me, hugging me tightly. Sincere, I'm sorry, she sobbed, her voice thick with emotion. I truly know I was wrong. There's really nothing else between Ethan Hayes and me. I'll definitely keep my distance from him from now on. Something like today will absolutely never happen again. Please don't be angry anymore, okay? She lifted her tear-streaked face, her eyes red and swollen. Her voice held a plea, her arms wrapped tightly around my waist. I sighed softly, ultimately choosing to yield. Then I lowered my head and bit her lip hard. Only when a trace of blood seeped from the corner of her mouth did I release her, satisfied. Victoria, this is the consequence of offending me. Remember, there must never be a next time. Okay. Victoria showed no impatience, nestling obediently in my arms. I swept her up into my arms and carried her into the bedroom. Chapter 4. After a night of candid intimacy, most of my displeasure had dissipated. The next day, the auction incident and my pointed social media post made Ethan Hayes the laughingstock of the entire company. Victoria Bellwether's obvious efforts to distance herself from him set the tone for everyone else. The company had no shortage of sycophants who kiss up and kick down. Colleagues who had been fawning over him just the day before were now, at best, refraining from kicking him while he was down. Someone even plastered numerous photos of Ethan Hayes wearing the security uniform at the auction on the company bulletin board. In the photos, Ethan looked disheveled, his eyes red, utterly miserable. People passing him by didn't hesitate to point and whisper, "That's him, the shameless one, wearing Mr. Clark's cast-off clothes." Ethan Hayes' days at the company became increasingly difficult. The cafeteria staff would tamper with his meals. He often took one bite of food and his expression would change drastically. When he went to the restroom, the door would suddenly lock, trapping him inside for an entire afternoon. The most ridiculous part was that everyone pretended nothing had happened that day. His calls for help to Victoria Bellwether were directly rejected. I heard about these incidents from Ms. Young. "Mr. Clark, should I intervene?" I shook my head. "Ms. Young, don't overestimate my mercy, nor underestimate his ambition. Since he chose this path, he must bear the consequences." A week later, Ms. Young informed me that Ethan Hayes hadn't shown up for work for 3 consecutive days. I assumed he had finally given up and was preparing to resign. But it turned out I had underestimated him. That day, Victoria Bellwether had a crucial international business negotiation, a deal worth at least $100 million. 20 minutes before the meeting, Victoria's phone rang. It was Ethan Hayes. She pressed the reject button expressionlessly, but immediately after he sent a text message. "Ms. Bellwether, I'm sorry to disturb you at this final moment. I wanted to thank you in person, but alas, fate has brought us to this point. Thank you for your trust and guidance. Meeting you has been the greatest fortune of my life. I will repay your kindness in the next life." Victoria's face instantly turned deathly pale. She frantically tried calling back, but the calls went unanswered. Victoria panicked. In her desperation, she had her assistant use a tracking system to find Ethan's location. "Postpone today's negotiation." She uttered this sentence and rushed out, disregarding everything, a stark contrast to her usual elegance. When Victoria arrived at Ethan Hayes' apartment, she found him unconscious in the bathtub. Blood seeped continuously from a wound on his left wrist, staining the entire bathwater red. His face was as white as paper, his breathing faint. Victoria screamed, frantically tearing her own clothes to stanch the bleeding, rushing him to the hospital. It was said that on the way, Ethan's body gradually grew cold, reminding her of the moment her white moonlight died in her arms. Fortunately, he received timely medical attention, and Ethan was ultimately saved. After learning about the various forms of bullying Ethan had recently endured at the company, Victoria flew into a rage. Usually gentle and composed, she smashed her phone in anger. But I knew none of this at the time. I happened to be at the same hospital undergoing tests for acute gastroenteritis. Just as I saw her emerge from the elevator, thinking she had come to see me, I happily walked towards her. Before I could speak, Victoria slapped me hard across the face. Caught off balance, I stumbled and fell, my stomach knotting in pain. My cheek stung fiercely. I was completely stunned by the blow. In all our years of marriage, she had rarely spoken harshly to me, let alone ever laid a hand on me. "Sincere Clark, how could you be so despicable, so disgusting?" Victoria looked down at me, her eyes blazing with anger and revulsion. "I already kept my distance from Ethan Hayes as you demanded. Do you have to drive him to his death before you're satisfied?" I looked at her, bewildered. "He's lying in the emergency room right now, and you come over here smiling. What are you trying to do? Are you going to push him to suicide again? How could I have married such a despicable, shameless low-life like you?" I clutched the test results in my hand, wanting to explain, but she didn't spare another glance at me curled up on the floor, simply turned and walked away. Watching her receding back, I managed to piece together the situation from the curses Victoria had hurled at me. Ethan Hayes had attempted suicide, and Victoria thought I had driven him to it. Immediately after, I received a call from Ms. Young. "Mr. Clark, I'm calling to say goodbye. Ms. Bellwether just fired me for abuse of power, and she appointed Assistant Hayes to take over my position." What? It's not just me. Almost all employees who ever had friction with Assistant Hayes were let go. Victoria had stated her position in the strongest possible terms. She had chosen Ethan Hayes. Hanging up the phone, fury surged through me. I punched the wall, blood trickling from my knuckles, dripping onto the floor. I forced myself to calm down. "Victoria Bellwether, since you've taken things this far, don't blame me for being ruthless. The price for offending me is far greater than you can bear." Chapter 5. That same afternoon, I packed my things and moved out of the Bellwether residence, returning to the Clark family home. My father, learning I was back, didn't ask many questions, just quietly instructed the housekeeper to prepare my room. My mother, however, keenly sensed something was wrong. "Sincere, did you and Victoria have a fight?" She sat on the edge of my bed, asking softly. I shook my head without answering. The bandage on my hand from the injury at the hospital was visible. "What happened here?" My mother grasped my wrist, her brow furrowed. "It's nothing, just bumped it accidentally." I didn't tell them about Victoria hitting me, nor did I mention Ethan Hayes. I just said I wanted to come home and rest for a few days, to recalibrate. But my parents could easily find out everything with a little investigation. Half a month passed. Not a single call, not a single text message from Victoria Bellwether. The Cold War and mutual silence eroded the last vestiges of warmth between us. On social media, I saw Ethan Hayes ostentatiously posting photos of himself attending various events with Victoria. Every angle he carefully chose seemed to announce his impending status as the son-in-law of the Bellwether Corporation. Ms. Bellwether took me to the International Business Summit today. Lots of people thought I was her husband thanks to Ms. Bellwether for the limited edition watch. Truly, only the person who understands me best knows what I like. Ms. Bellwether says I'm her lucky star. Closed another big deal today, post after post, accompanied by intimate photos with Victoria. He was doing it deliberately. He knew I would see them. I chuckled softly and turned off my phone. Grasshoppers in autumn don't hop for long. Half a month later, under my arrangement, led by my father, a large number of Bellwether family shareholders collectively withdrew their investments. The Bellwether stock hit the limit down for several consecutive days. On the third day of the stock plummeting, Victoria's parents showed up at our door. "Sincere, dear, how have you been lately?" Eleanor Bellwether took my hand, her face full of concern. "Quite well," I replied blandly, pouring them tea. "Why did you suddenly move back home?" "Victoria said you weren't feeling well. We were very worried about you." Eleanor Bellwether probed tentatively. Victoria hadn't even bothered to call, but now she'd sent her parents to scout for information. "My precious son is perfectly healthy, just not in the best of moods lately." My father suddenly spoke up, his tone icy. Arthur and Eleanor Bellwether paused, exchanging glances. "What happened? Did that girl Victoria upset Sincere?" Arthur Bellwether frowned. My father sneered, placing his teacup down heavily on the table. The Bellwether family's upbringing is truly eye-opening. Arthur and Eleanor's faces changed drastically. Word by word, my father recounted everything that had happened recently. How Victoria had installed Ethan Hayes in my beach house. How she had indulged Ethan's provocations against me. And how, at the hospital, Victoria had jumped to conclusions and blamed everything on me without asking any questions. "Your esteemed daughter has currently dismissed all employees within the company who had any friction with that young man. This is the Bellwether's fine daughter, and her attitude towards Sincere," my father stated coldly. Arthur and Eleanor's faces went from livid to pale, then back again. How is this possible?" Eleanor Bellwether looked at me in disbelief. "Victoria isn't like this. The facts speak for themselves," I said flatly. Arthur Bellwether angrily dialed Victoria's number. Get over here right now, you disgraceful daughter. Doing something like this, you've utterly shamed the Bellwether family. Arthur slammed down the phone, turned to my father and me, apologizing profusely. I'm sorry, we failed in raising her properly. We will definitely give Sincere a satisfactory resolution to this matter. What kind of resolution could Victoria give me? Falsely tell me that I'm much more important to her than Ethan Hayes? Or honestly tell me she regretted this marriage long ago? Either way, I didn't need it. I stood up and went to my room, retrieving the divorce documents. Today, let this farce finally come to an end. Chapter 6. Soon the main door opened and Victoria Bellwether walked in. What shocked me was that Ethan Hayes actually followed her. He hid behind Victoria, looking timid and apprehensive. My parents' expressions, which had slightly softened due to Arthur and Eleanor's apologies, instantly darkened again. For Victoria to dare bring him here, to my family home, at a time like this, she was foolish beyond saving. Arthur Bellwether rushed towards her, raising his hand and delivering a sharp slap. Disgraceful daughter, you still dare bring this man here? Victoria's face instantly flushed red. She clearly hadn't expected her father to strike her in public and froze for a moment. Dad, listen to my explanation. Explain what? Another heavy slap landed on her other cheek. You've dragged our family's name through the mud, having been struck in front of Ethan Hayes. Victoria's pride was shattered. Just as she was about to retort, Arthur Bellwether lunged forward with a kick. Unexpectedly, Ethan Hayes threw himself forward, shielding Victoria and taking the full force of the blow himself. He cried out in pain, collapsing to the floor, clutching his kicked leg, his face pale, eyes red. Seeing his theatrical display, Eleanor Bellwether trembled with rage. You wretched scum, still trying to play the victim at a time like this. Eleanor rushed forward to hit him, but Victoria quickly pulled Ethan into her arms protectively. Watching this melodrama unfold, I couldn't help but laugh softly, clapping lightly. What a devoted pair of lovers. Victoria looked up at me, her eyes filled with anger. Sincere Clark, you despicable liar. Don't you dare slander my relationship with Ethan Hayes. We are completely innocent. There's nothing inappropriate between us, she declared, holding Ethan tightly. I am merely atoning for your previous excessive actions. At this remark, my father shot up from his seat, furious. How were my son's actions excessive? Arthur Bellwether slapped Victoria again. Shut up, say one more word, and I'll break your legs. Arthur turned back to me, forcing an apologetic smile, his voice conciliatory. Sincere, we will definitely give you a satisfactory resolution to this matter. I stood up, surveyed the room, my gaze finally resting on Victoria. Since both sets of parents are present today, and everyone has seen Victoria Bellwether's choice, there's no point in continuing this marriage. I produced the divorce agreement I had prepared earlier. I have drafted and signed the divorce papers. Assets will be divided according to the prenuptial agreement. Chapter 7. Hearing we were getting divorced, the pained expression on Ethan Hayes' face vanished instantly, replaced by a look of triumph in his eyes. Just moments ago he was wailing on the floor. Now he seemed quite spirited. Victoria abruptly pushed Ethan's hand away and walked towards me, disbelief written all over her face. Sincere, you can't divorce me, why not? I raised an eyebrow slightly. You're holding another man, protecting him so fiercely, yet now you tell me we can't divorce? I told you Ethan Hayes and I truly just have a normal superior-subordinate relationship, Victoria argued. Victoria Bellwether, I don't care what your relationship with Ethan Hayes actually is. All I know is that you chose him, not me. Since that's the case, there's no need for us to continue. I looked at her, stating each word clearly. Victoria Bellwether, remember when we first got married, I told you explicitly. I absolutely hate people touching my things, and you, time and time again, crossed that line. How many chances did I give you? And which one did you ever cherish? Dirty things need to be thrown away. The same goes for people. I looked directly into her eyes. Victoria Bellwether, I don't want you anymore. Victoria's face turned deathly pale. I picked up the divorce agreement and handed it to her. Assets are divided according to the prenup. It's very fair to you. Victoria didn't take it. Sincere, I won't sign it. You're just acting out of anger right now." Seeing Victoria still refusing, my father stood up. "Ms. Bellwether, if this divorce can be handled amicably, future cooperation can still be discussed. Otherwise, all deals are off." The Bellwether Corporation was already on its last legs. If the cooperation truly collapsed, the losses would be immeasurable. Arthur Bellwether pondered for a moment, then finally shot Victoria a harsh glare. Signed forced by her parents, Victoria finally signed the papers. Victoria Bellwether and I were officially divorced. Ethan Hayes stood aside, unable to hide the smugness in his eyes. I met his gaze, smirking coldly. "Assistant Hayes, congratulations on your successful promotion." This remark made Victoria's parents explode on the spot. "You shameless creature!" Eleanor Bellwether started hitting and cursing Ethan, her voice distorted with rage. "This is all your fault. I summoned the butler. Show our guests out." Just then the housekeeper walked in carrying a bowl of medicine. "Young master, the medicine is ready. Drink it while it's hot." Victoria froze. "Sincere, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" Victoria's voice was incredibly hoarse. "Acute gastroenteritis. Just a minor illness. No need for Ms. Bellwether's concern." "It's normal that Ms. Bellwether wouldn't know, considering it was the day you hit me at the hospital." "You didn't allow me to say a single word before you left," I stated calmly. Victoria's lips trembled. She couldn't speak. Our marriage ended that day. Hearing this, my mother's expression changed abruptly. "What? She dared to hit you?" My mother rushed over to Victoria and slapped her across the face. Victoria stumbled back but didn't resist. "Are you even human? Daring to hit my son? Especially when he was sick," my mother roared. Victoria's lip was bleeding from the blow, but she just stared blankly at me, her eyes filled with pain and regret. "Sincere," she murmured my name, her voice pleading. "Give me one more chance, just one, please." "A chance?" I sneered. "I've given you many chances, haven't I?" Victoria instantly broke down, collapsing to her knees. "Butler, show them out." The butler unceremoniously escorted the Bellwether family out. Arthur pulled up the devastated Victoria, while Eleanor grabbed Ethan by the hair, shoving him towards the door. Chapter 8. The Bellwether Corporation ultimately avoided bankruptcy, but the impact of the divorce was indelible. Within weeks, the company's stock plummeted nearly 40%, multiple partners terminated projects, and over a dozen core investors pulled their funding. Victoria Bellwether was no longer the formidable businesswoman who commanded the corporate world. She shut herself in her villa all day, surrounded by scattered wine bottles. Alcohol became her refuge, moments of sobriety few and far between. Ethan Hayes, unwilling to give up the opportunity he had painstakingly gained, came to the villa every day to care for her. He tidied the rooms, brewed hangover remedies for her, and even carefully cleaned up after her when she was blackout drunk. "Ms. Bellwether, drink some water," Ethan offered, holding a glass. Victoria lifted her bloodshot eyes, her gaze focusing for a moment before clouding over again. "Lawrence, is that you? Are you back?" She reached out, touching Ethan's cheek. Ethan froze. This was the 17th time. 17 times Victoria had mistaken him for her deceased white moonlight. "I'm not Lawrence, I'm Ethan Hayes. Ethan Hayes." He forced down the bitterness in his heart, reminding her repeatedly. Victoria seemed not to hear, muttering to herself, "Lawrence, don't leave again this time, okay?" Enough. Ethan slapped Victoria's hand away, slamming the water glass onto the floor, shattering it. The sound startled Victoria, who looked at him in confusion. "I was such a fool." Ethan's voice trembled. "How could I fall in love with someone like you? You only ever saw me as a substitute. You deserve this. This is all your own doing." Ethan finally erupted, the long-suppressed resentment and jealousy pouring out. "You had a husband you didn't cherish, and now that you've ended up like this, you're still thinking about your damn white moonlight." Victoria's eyes suddenly cleared. the haze of drunkenness largely dissipating. For the first time in days, she was fully lucid. "Ethan Hayes, I forbid you to speak of him like that. Get out." Ethan let out a cold laugh. "Still protecting him at a time like this? Do you know he's not even dead?" Victoria froze completely. "What nonsense are you talking?" "Nonsense? Let me tell you, he never died. He took your parents' money and faked his death and left instructions for you to keep supporting his real girlfriend's company." Ethan screamed hysterically. Victoria lunged, grabbing his throat and pinning him against the wall. "Shut up," he struggled, his face turning purple. Victoria released her grip. Ethan collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. "How do you think I knew all those details about you two?" "He came to me. He decided your support for his girlfriend wasn't enough. He wanted more, so he found me. Helped me climb the ladder to gain more benefits." Victoria's face was deathly pale, her body swaying. "Impossible. Lawrence is dead?" Ethan laughed mockingly. "Go ask your parents. Ask them if they ever gave Lawrence Ashworth $50 million after making a call to confirm." Victoria slumped to the floor. The call was brief, but enough to shatter her. Her father's silence had been too long, his denial too weak. I actually hurt sincere. For two such despicable men," she murmured to herself, her voice broken. Ethan watched her break down, laughing loudly. "Victoria Bellwether, don't blame anyone else. You pushed away the person who loved you most with your own hands." Victoria snapped her head up. "Get out and never let me see you again." Victoria returned to the company. She called an emergency board meeting, decisively cutting ties with several problematic partners. 3 days later, the once thriving Kerr Tech declared bankruptcy. Its founder, Jasmine Kerr, was taken away by the police for investigation into suspected financial fraud. This company was the one founded by Lawrence's girlfriend, the enterprise Victoria had been secretly supporting. Meanwhile, Ethan Hayes received a text from an unknown number. "I know you betrayed me." As night fell, Ethan quickened his pace, feeling persistently that someone was following him. He turned into a small alley, intending to take a shortcut home. The next morning, the front page of the newspaper carried a story. 2 male bodies were discovered in a small alley. Police preliminarily determined it was a case of mutual homicide. Victoria looked at the newspaper, her gaze falling on the 2 names. Ethan Hayes, Lawrence Ashworth. Chapter 9. After the Bellwether family regained some stability, Victoria Bellwether began preparing various stomach-soothing meals. She delivered them to my office every day. Exquisite lunchboxes, opening to reveal carefully arranged dishes, light, nutritious, and visually appealing. Occasionally there were small gifts too. Ties, fountain pens, cufflinks. None were cheap, they were clearly chosen with care. I returned everything. Along with the lunchboxes, I had my secretary send them back. She started waiting for me downstairs at the company building, rain or shine, sometimes holding flowers, sometimes carrying a cake, a cautious smile on her face. I ignored her, walking past as if she were a stranger, until one day, she blocked my car on my way home. She rushed out recklessly and knelt on the ground. The rain quickly soaked her dress, her hair plastered wetly to her cheeks. "Sincere, please, forgive me just this once." Her voice was tearful, trembling. I sat in the car, watching her through the window. "Victoria Bellwether, have you caused enough trouble?" My voice was calm, devoid of any emotion. "It's over between us." The driver received my signal and slowly started the car, driving around her. In the rearview mirror, she remained kneeling in the rain, her figure growing smaller. I turned my head away, refusing to look anymore. Some cracks once formed can never be mended. Years later, the Bellwether Corporation was a shadow of its former self. Under my leadership, the Clark Group had expanded its reach into various industries, becoming a leader in each. I stood under the spotlights at a press conference, speaking eloquently, introducing the group's latest tech products, full of confidence and vigor. Thunderous applause filled the room, camera flashes blinking incessantly. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a familiar figure. At the back of the crowd, a somewhat haggard woman stood quietly, dressed in simple clothes, wearing light makeup. It was Victoria Bellwether. She had lost a lot of weight, and her once refined face showed signs of weariness. No longer the radiant business titan from memory. She was looking at me too, her gaze calm and gentle. No resentment, no pleading, no complex emotions. Just a faint, resigned smile, as if saying goodbye to her past self. I gave her a slight smile in acknowledgement. Then, she slowly disappeared into the crowd. The press conference continued, reporters swarming around, clamoring with questions. I withdrew my gaze, putting on a polite smile once more. The future is long, the road ahead far. She and I would both journey towards our respective destined futures. End of story.